Welcome back, everyone. This is Cody Hart for Government Accountability. It is Monday, April 11th, and I have a very significant announcement to make today. In my research into the Washington State election system, and specifically in Skagit counties. For those who have been following me, you'll know that I've been issuing audit reports on the 2020 election and looking into how the election is being managed by local and state officials. In this report, I am going to expand on something I briefly, very briefly disclosed in the past video reports. And that was because I wanted to look into it some more and confirm what I had thought I had found. And it is something I think that's horrific. I think every Washingtonian should be horrified and angered. I am personally enraged, and that is that in the 2020 election, I appear to have found the physical evidence confirming that military overseas absentee ballots, referred to as UOCAVA ballots, were destroyed in the 2020 election. And by destroyed, I mean destroyed. They were not counted. I have the physical records to show they existed. I have the physical records to show multiple election officials handled them, documented them, and then their votes weren't counted. I cannot think of something more disgusting to have occurred and for me to have found. And so in today's video, I'm going to discuss how I know this and some of my conversations. So to begin, I have a video here of me in the election office in Skagit County where I disclosed what I had found and confronted the election manager, Gabriel Clay, with my evidence and concerns, and allowed her an opportunity to respond. And I think you'll find her responses interesting, and we will go from there.
It kind of resaturates pretty easily.
Good morning, Gabriel.
Good morning.
Hey, I had, happy Monday, by the way.
Yeah, Monday.
I had 3 questions. First, I put this out a couple weeks back, or actually January. Have you seen this?
I have not.
All right, so I've been looking over the ballot duplication, and I came across 3 real big questions I had to ask you about.
Okay.
Maybe you can answer them here now, maybe later.
Okay.
So you recall these records right here, right?
Yeah.
So when I look through these, the numbers, these records for the ballot duplication do not match the reconciliation report. And so specifically, there are duplicated UOCAVA ballots in here that are not existing on the reconciliation report.
What do you mean by not existing on the?
So there's more of them. So the 4 people who signed these.
Are you okay? So let me clarify, because are you talking about the electronic, like where it might say electronic version?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
It says UOCAVA.
Okay.
And the sheets specifically say UOCAVA. And they come up with dozens more of them that are the military absentee ballots that are in these duplication records than were counted in the election certification.
Okay, so depending on how the notation could be, and the notation could have been written down wrong, but we have like, so you can go online and print your own ballot right from home.
I know the electronic, they're complete, the numbers aren't part of those.
Okay, so, I mean, where in here does it state UOCAVA specifically for that?
So on the sheets, yeah, on the sheets, you'll see that you guys kept track of them. And so in 2020, you'll see that different ones, you have electronic, and then you have UOCAVA that are mentioned. They're specifically notated.
Okay, I'll have to look just because.
Yeah, so this might be the first time you've been aware of this then. So I have gone through, because you're aware, the public, a lot of people are saying, Cody, can you look at this? And I would understand 1 or 2, but we're talking dozens of them.
Okay, so the only UOCAVAs we do duplicate are the ones that come in electronic.
I understand that.
Okay.
I stopped there because I want to really point out what she just said, and it's something I've known. The only duplicated ballots here are the ones that come in electronically. And I've zoomed in. And so as you will see, return methods on the election certificate are email and fax electronically that they've duplicated. That is where this 432 comes from. But when you look at the physical records that are signed by multiple people, typically 5 or more, and usually 6, including Gabriel Clay for many of these, they are attesting to, they are certifying in their review of those duplicated ballots that these are UOCAVA ballots. And the only reason that she said, and that I believe, and I think it's consistent with every other office, that they're being duplicated and would ever be tracked, is because they're received electronically. This is how I am so certain about what I have found. So with that, I wanted to point that out, and we'll continue to what she has to say. I guess I am letting you know they don't match.
Okay. I will have to look into
Yeah.
it. I will have to see on here where it does state UOCAVA specific.
Yeah, they're in the records you gave me. So
Okay.
you can look at the same ones you sent me.
Sure,
These are just printouts of them.
Yeah, that's not
And if you haven't seen the report, then I will let you know in the report summary. You know, I didn't look at this before I brought it over. Oh, it's double-sided, right? Yes, it is. Here's what I came up with
Okay.
based on these records.
Okay.
And so that number here, you know, it's 3 dozen or so that were not counted in the election results that are in the records here.
Okay.
And that's why my concern is, that's what my concern is.
Sure. I mean, I could definitely take a look at that.
Okay, so this is the first time you've been aware of it. I will give you a chance to take a look at it. And then I noticed too, in the 2021 results, when you guys duplicated ballots, you stopped keeping track of all this. I'm going to stop it there real quick and point this out. So now I move on in this conversation from talking about these blue forms for ballot duplication and how they maintain their record in the 2020 election, and how they, after that, started to keep track of these ballot duplications. Again, those who've been following me and following this subject understand ballot duplication is a very precarious item in the election system. It has a lot of safeguards intended to prevent any kind of manipulation of ballots. But as I pointed out in previous videos, we have a lot of conflicts of interest in the 2020 election in Skagit County, and I believe many other offices in the state. And so in 2021, conveniently, the election officials, the election workers have chosen to modify the approach that they document this duplication process, and it's dramatically different. And so let's take a moment, let her describe how what their response to that is. You stopped tracking electronic ballots. You stopped tracking UOCAVA ballots. I don't have that in this report, but you're aware of your own tables.
Yeah, I mean, because we do change and improve.
No, I know, but now that's my question. So in 2021, after this election, you guys stopped keeping track of them.
We're not required to track them in that same way.
It's not about requirement. I'm just wondering why the change happened.
It could have been that this was way more time consuming than it needed to be. I know that in this point in time, we kind of were looking at how to do our duplications in a different format that we thought would work. And I think this ended up being far more labor intensive and causing a lot more time to
note down on here.
To note down in the way that we did here. So we've been looking at better ways to move the process along, because especially like in 2020, I mean, we're looking at thousands and thousands. Every presidential, we have anywhere, sometimes from 800 to 300 up to 1,500 or 2,000 duplications we have to do. Smaller elections, not as much, but a lot of people participate, in the presidential, so we get a lot more duplications.
I understand.
So,
So
it's just kind of thinking like, how long does it take? Especially on a big ballot too. Big ballots take a long time to duplicate, so it takes days and days and days. And so, if we were trying to look for places where we can make it more efficient and actually get the process.
And I understand that.
So we're kind of always like changing this and trying to find better ways.
So I'll just kind of give you a comment about that real quick. The 2020 election, you're right. You guys duplicated 1,600 ballots or so. I have 300 pages, right? In 2021, you're averaging 6 to 10 pages, and you didn't keep track of them. And so the time part doesn't make sense to me. It makes sense. Like on lesser elections, when you can do 300 and keep track. And then on follow-up elections, you don't keep track on 8 pages. It doesn't make sense to me.
Right, but
So without beating this conversation to death, there is another part of this conversation I wanted to bring to everyone's attention that I thought was very interesting. And that is what I keep finding when I look into the election system as a whole. As I mentioned, we have multiple levels of safeguards. Many of those have been established for decades. And while internally we hope our government employees and volunteer workers would all act above board without any concerns, we do have a process where we have observers, and most people aren't aware that the appointment of observers is by state law. It is something that only the major political parties have the ability to do. So in this case, observers had the ability to watch this, and so I wanted to understand what the situation with these observers was and is in our election. So we'll listen to her response on this. I only had one last question. Observers for this. There are supposed to be observers for this entire duplication process, and in 2020, I know I've talked to you in the past. Who were the observers assigned by in this? There's supposed to be two, my understanding is correct, the Democrat and the Republican parties are supposed to have observers during this duplication process.
well, they're supposed to have observers during the whole election process,
Okay.
but only if they participate.
Who were supposed to assign that? Who are your point of contacts on this? People,
For,
Democrat, Republican Party. Who is your point of contact?
well, we send letters out to the.
Do you know their names? There's only 2 of them.
Yeah, Bill Bruck and Lynn Campbell.
And Lynn or Glenn?
Lynn.
Lynn.
Sorry.
So, and just to make sure I understand, Bill Brook, Republican Party, is supposed to assign observers to this, right? Mm-hmm. And then Lynn Campbell, Democrat Party, is supposed to assign observers. Did they assign observers to this?
I don't know if they sent them to this. We did have observers. I'd have to. I can get our logs if you want, but I just don't remember off the top of my head.
Do you have logs of when observers are around?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, I don't think I've seen those. Do I have to submit a records request for that, or can you email that to me?
I should be able to email it to you. Let me double check with Corey, make sure it's not something that is supposed to have one. But if I can just email it to you, I can just send it to you.
Okay. So I did end up putting a records request in, and from the looks of it, we have very intermittent observers being assigned to our elections. I'm going to be reaching out to the political representatives to find out their feedback on this, not just in 2020, but 2021 and 2022 so far, and what their perspective is this, and I'll be reporting on that in the future videos. But again, I've already proven it. It's proven. You can see the physical records yourself of these ballots being duplicated that document the overseas absentee military ballots existed, and that according to the certified election results, they were never counted. They were, for all intents and purposes, destroyed from what we see, and I truly believe that's what I have found here. The other safeguard we have in this process is the election certification for the County Canvassing Board, which I'll be talking about in the future quite a bit more. It's been fascinating on my research on what's been going on with county canvassing boards across our state, their powers that people generally don't understand, and the lack of engagement and accountability that's been going on. So we had in the 2020 election where these particular duplicated ballots were destroyed, these military ballots were destroyed and not counted. We had 3 members of a county canvassing board. We had the head of the county commissioners government, Miss Lisa Janicki. We had Sandra Perkins, the auditor, and we had the assistant prosecuting attorney, Melinda Miller, for the prosecuting attorney's office, acting in place of the prosecuting attorney, Will Wyrich. So I wanted to give them an opportunity. And so here is, generally speaking, they didn't provide a response. I had asked from all of them to correspond with me. I haven't received any. I've submitted the evidence to them. And I will say Lisa Janicki has said she had no comment on the matter. The assistant prosecuting attorney's office will not respond formally to this yet, or I should say has not responded. I guess we will give them time. And the county auditor, Sandra Perkins, who generally has the greatest amount of oversight of this. She is Gabriel Clay's direct supervisor and the elected official in charge of the election office. So these are all the supposed safeguards. And as I've shown, they failed us. They failed our active duty military, overseas voters who voted with these absentee ballots. And I will not stop until I figure out which one of them is the most culpable. And if I can have my way to ensure that they all are held accountable, and if the criminal nature of what I seem to have found is pursued vigorously, and I will pursue it vigorously until the end of time, because I will not forgive this. I have already shed light on election fraud and corruption across Washington State to a level that I can barely believe. And now in my own county, the veterans that I served with, the fellow comrades who are in the military right now, likely from NAS Woodby Island, likely from Everett naval bases, likely from Army bases. I have not shared with very many people, but I have almost exclusively hired veterans in my own company. They're serving overseas right now. I have one that's overseas in the Ukraine theater over in Poland, and I have another one that just returned from that region. I do not forgive this. This is unforgivable. And if you are one of the officials who just happen not to catch this, while I will forgive you for your incompetence, your act cannot be forgiven for your neglect. You are in a position to oversee and protect people who cannot ensure that their vote was being counted, and you failed them. All of these people failed our active duty military if they had their ballots destroyed. So I ask everybody to please look into this as well. Do what you can to hold these people accountable. I have seen that they are hiding behind their lawyers. They're hiding behind their corrupt government allies. And it's my job and everyone else's job to destroy them and to hold them accountable for what they're doing, for betraying all of us and betraying the integrity of our elections. So I don't care what political party you're from, what side of government you're on. If you betray our military active duty, you betray me, you betray all of us, and all of us will come after you. And I am going to lead that charge. If you are ready for it, you're going to get me directly at you. I am coming for you. I will get you for this, and there will be no escaping. So I'm getting a little emotional, a little angry today. I apologize for that, and I hope all of you get a little angry about this, as angry as I am, and help hold them accountable. So that's it for my update today. I have more news coming out soon, and I hope to help return integrity to all of our elections in Washington State and help get rid of all these dirt bags that keep failing us. Thank you.